Good morning, everyone. My name is Cheryl, and I've been with GrabTaxi for about 2 years and 1 month now. And when I joined, we had 16 employees. Today, we have about over 1,200 employees that work for us. And 2 years ago, whenever I got up on stage, the first question I always ask is, how many of you have heard of My Taxi or GrabTaxi? And if 10% of the room knew about it, I would be really, really excited. But I guess I'm getting really ahead of myself. So how did it all begin, right? So I'm sure all of you have mobile internet. Try Googling this phrase, right? World's worst taxis. And if you Google it, you'll see that Malaysia, besides being famous for having the Petronas Twin Towers or Nicole David, who is the world champion for squash, and being able to organize really interesting rallies, we're also famous and on the world map for having really, really bad taxi drivers. Now, the taxi drivers in KL especially are known to overcharge. They're known to, haggle with you, and there are also a lot of safety concerns. And as personal users of taxis, we felt, something had to change, right? This wasn't right. This wasn't the way that it could and had to be. So that's really how we started. We started with a really simple mission. We wanted to make taxis safe, fast, certain, and accessible for everyone. A really, really simple thing, but it was really hard in the beginning, right? It's hard to tell taxi drivers, like, first thing, you need to use the meter, and then on top of that, you need smartphone and you need data. But we really just kept pushing. In the beginning, it was really, really difficult, but over time, when we had a track record, when we were able to prove to people, to taxi drivers, that the shape of their rice bowl was actually a mobile phone, because so much bookings were coming through the app, we were able to tilt, and more drivers signed up with us. In the beginning, we really had to spend a lot of time recruiting drivers outside of the office, but over time today, if you are reading the Indonesian newspapers, you'll see that we're in the papers because there's such a long queue, backlog of people trying to sign up for us. So we started in Malaysia, and that's why we're called My Taxi. And today, outside of Malaysia, we're called GrabTaxi because the spelling of My Taxi is in Malay, and people just can't spell that. So one of the lessons you learn with scaling. So we also then realized that the problems that we had in Malaysia was not just unique to Malaysians, right? Filipinos, people in Bangkok, people in Indonesia. Problems with taxis were prevalent across Southeast Asia. And so that really helped us grow. We've been really blessed in a very short amount of time, where today, the largest, we have the most amount of mobile transactions for transportation. We have a large fleet comprising of 122,000 vehicles across 26 cities in 6 countries, 8 million app downloads, and we grew by 10 times just last year. So we are number one in terms of all metrics. If you look at the 6 countries we're in, we're number one in terms of vehicles, we're number one in terms of drivers, and in terms of bookings. And a question that I always get is, how does a Malaysian company with Malaysian founders become the company that we are today, right? And I would say, and people always ask, what makes you different against global competitors? And I think it's pretty simple. For us, we are local. We're a local company, and our strategy is hyperlocal, meaning that a lot of global companies, when they come to Southeast Asia, they think of how to localize their strategy. For us, we start first with the local lens, and not just a local Southeast Asian lens, but a local Malaysian lens or Filipino lens. So for example, if you think about, for us, we're local in our purpose. And if you look at Malaysia, and maybe Philippines and Thailand, one of the biggest concerns is about safety. Safety of taking public transportation at night. And we're the first in the world to actually build something called Track My Ride, meaning that when I get into a taxi, I can share my location with someone else. because that helps them know exactly where I am. I used to do it, without technology. I used to get into a taxi, take a photo, and then like MMS to my mom. But we've built technology that allows that to happen today through the app. But besides what we do on the app, I think what's really important is what we do offline, right? In terms of driver screening, we don't allow online sign up of drivers. And not only do you have to come to us when it comes to signing up, we do things like random house checks in certain countries where safety is a major concern. We also require letters of good conduct from police in certain countries. But that, of course, isn't relevant in all countries. And if you want to be hyperlocal, you need to think about the problem in each country that you're in. So conversely, if you think about Singapore, no safety issues, drivers are really well disciplined. To become a driver, it's really tough. If any of you ever tried it, it's no joke. You need to train for about 60 days, 1 hour every day. You can only take 2 days off, and you need to do all kinds of things like learning how to do basic CPR, folding wheelchair and things like that. And it's the reason why the standard of taxi drivers in Singapore is really great. So for them, what's really important is efficiency. And if you look during peak hour, Singapore, there's always massive, massive traffic jams. And what we did in Singapore was we tweaked the app a bit so that the algorithm is a lot faster, the waiting time is a lot shorter, and we really, really spent an unbelievable amount to ramp up our network of drivers. Every ride, when we started, in Singapore, because we knew that speed is important and we needed a large network of drivers, every ride in the beginning, a driver can make up to 8 Sing dollars from us just to pick up the ride, not including the fare, because we knew efficiency was important. And today we have the largest and fastest network in Singapore. So besides being hyper-local in our purpose, we're also hyper-local in our operations. So what do I mean by that? Simple things like driver sign-up. Every country that we're in, we localize how we do it. In Malaysia, we do it at NGV stations, which is where all taxis kind of pump petrol. In Vietnam, the drivers are really hungry. They have no time and sit to talk to you. So we get in, we pay for the fare, and we have to sell to them during the ride. In Singapore, we used to do it before we got caught. In Changi Airport, you have about exactly 1 minute, 34 seconds before the queue starts moving, so we try to sell in that amount of time. So we're hyper-local in the way that we operate, we're high-touch with our driver recruitment. We also look at ways we can exceed expectations in a hyper-local way. So in case of Malaysia, most people here drive. Public transport isn't as common as in other countries. And for us, going to the airport, for most consumers, they take taxis, and that is that one moment in which we can show them that the service is pretty good. Take taxis, right? And so what we do is for every advanced airport booking, meaning if you use the app and make an advanced booking to the airport, we call up the driver and make sure that they get you on time. Every single advanced airport booking, we will call the driver and we'll make sure that they wake up to pick you up for your flight. Besides that, we're also hyper-local in the way that we do marketing. I think if all of you were around for Merdeka, you know that there was a lot going on. And we actually we're very in tune with what happens in local markets. So this is something that we did to encourage people to take public transport over the weekend. We also did something called Grab Durian, because Malaysians, Singaporeans, they love durian, and we did interesting delivery of durian to their homes if you order through the app. So the other thing about us that's important for us to continue growing is to move beyond taxis. When we started out, we were just about taxis. Today, we have cars in 6 markets and bikes in 4. So Grab Bike is something that we launched in Vietnam, but our biggest market is actually in Indonesia, where the amount of bikes that we have, and we only launched in May 22nd this year, we have more bikes than taxis on our network. And we did a driver event about a month ago where we signed up drivers. 8,000 drivers came to sign up. Indonesia, everything is about scale, right? So we had 50 people do registration, 50 people test whether they have license, 50 people do defensive driving. So that's kind of how we scale. So the last thing about Grab and why I think Grab is successful and different from other companies is because we have a very strong social mission. And I know sometimes it seems very soft and very airy, but it is something that gets us out of bed every morning. I wouldn't be able to do this, I think, for 2 years if it wasn't because I really believe in our mission. So what's our social mission? We have two consumers that we really care about, the driver and the passengers. And for drivers, how do we change their lives? We help them make more money. We help them waste less time driving around looking for passengers. And we are also the gateway to the internet for them, because without us, there's no reason to have a smartphone with data plan. But because of us, they do. And because they have internet, they learn how to use things like Waze, they learn how to Skype with their children, and of course, they discover how to use porn, but that's not us. Besides that, we also, we believe in safer rides and freedom for women, don't drink and drive, and enforcing the regulated rate. Besides that, we're also very big on anti-drink driving campaign. If you didn't realize, that's actually me. It says, if I start to look sexy, book a taxi. And we put this in all the clubs, in KL. And I always tell people, you work for a startup when you write your own copy, do your own makeup and star in your own ads. So this was us a couple of years ago. We're also, big on helping drivers improve their lives. So we do all kinds of things like health checks for drivers. We do family day. We have a fund that is dedicated just for drivers, because if you look at drivers in general, their company will cover damage to car and damage to passenger, but not most of the time they don't cover the driver. So they will take care of everything else except the driver, and what we do is for our top drivers, we actually put in a program in which they can draw down something like a fund, like an EPF fund, which they can use for hospitalizations and things that are related to health. So these are the ways in which we keep our drivers loyal. So I guess in summary, 3 things that have helped us, a small Malaysian company, become a pretty successful company against global competitors. First is we're really hyper-local in the way that we think, in the way that we exist in our operations. We also have expanded beyond taxis, and that's something really important, because if you want to change the way people commute, we had to understand, and it was quite hard for us, to be honest, because we always believed in drivers, taxi drivers. We had to understand that people want to commute in more than just one way, more than just taxi cars, they want luxury cars, and they want bikes, especially in places like Jakarta. And lastly, it's about really having values that you care about, having social mission, because having a social mission really helps us build a really strong team. It gives us a lot of opportunities to form partnerships, especially when we were really small. It gave us a lot of leverage with media, lots and lots of fans, and all of that really does relate to financial profits for us. So every morning when I get out of bed, when all of Grab gets out of bed, we used to believe that what we wanted to do was change the life of taxi drivers. Today, what we believe in is freedom. Freedom in the sense that as a driver, you're not bound to any taxi company. You can do it in many, many different forms. Freedom because you have more money to take care of your family. We also believe in the freedom for people, be it women, be it old people, to not have to own a car, to not have to drive. You can commute and you can depend on great service and transportation. And lastly, it's about freedom where it's affordable and there's a choice for everyone. So we wake up every day and we hope that we can do this, right? We can understand the world enough that we can leave it a better place than when we first found it. And with that, thank you.